Thanks for being here today. What we want to talk about today is we're here to ask Iowans to call Governor Branstad. As you know, the session's gone into overtime. We're negotiating on budgets. We're not making lots of progress on that front. We had another meeting this morning. We may have another meeting later today. But it's time for Iowans to get involved in what's happening in terms of their state government. We've been pressing the Republicans to compromise on a host of issues, and let me just, I think you all have a handout, but let me just talk about a few of the 10 items on our list. K through 12 education. At a time the state's got $1 billion in the bank, we believe we can afford a modest 4% allowable growth for our schools. Early education for 4-year-old programs. We think now is not the time to back up on our commitment to giving kids a good start to school. Our public universities, the Republicans and the governor underfund to the tune of $40 million. Aid to private college students, there are cuts there. Our community colleges, the budget that the Republicans have proposed cut community colleges about $24 million from the level that the Senate provides. Helping Iowans find skilled jobs. We've got an effort to invest $10 million in successful job training programs for workers that lack skills. Local workforce offices for unemployed Iowans. The Republicans have plans to close dozens of those offices in the state. The Iowa Values Fund, the fund that helps create jobs in this state, the Republicans fund at zero. The Small Business Employee Health Insurance Tax Credit helps small businesses provide health insurance for their employees and help them stay in business. And an effort to jumpstart renewable energy jobs in this state. We are committed to those things. We started this session talking about education and job creation in this state, and we've been at it now for over 120 days, and we're not making much progress with the people in this building. So it's time for the people outside this building to call Governor Branstad and tell him starvation budgets for economic development and for education in the state are unacceptable to Iowans. So we're asking Iowans to reach out, call Governor Branstad. His number is 515-281-5211, and we're asking Iowans to make those calls to help break the logjam in the legislature. We'll be happy to take your questions.
Michael, last I checked, you're up next year, who's not? Who's under political pressure here?
I don't worry about political pressure. I worry about I'm trying to get Iowans engaged in this battle. We have people in this building that will not listen. They are not moving. As a matter of fact, as you know, 10 days ago or so, they actually backed up. The governor's office backed up on its budget. So they're changing on the downside. They're cutting education more because of those adjustments in the budget. And we think it's time for Iowans to be heard on this. We started this. We're going to do a statewide tour. We started on this yesterday in Cedar Rapids. Had Rob Hogue and Senator Bowman there talking about the cuts to education. Mostly a focus on K through 12 education. But we're going to go out across Iowa and encourage Iowans to get involved. In the only way you're going to break this impasse isn't amongst the players up here. We're in the 130th day almost of the session. It's not going to be broken inside this building. It's going to be broken by Iowans stepping up to the plate and calling the governor and telling him zero for local schools is unacceptable.
You're on a statewide tour, so we assume you don't see anything imminent, so you're not going to miss anything here while you're out touring the state?
Well, we think it's important for Iowans to be involved and to understand what's happening on these budgets. So that's why we're reaching out to them. And let me say again, our pleas to make investments in education and job creation in the state are falling on deaf ears in this building. If that's going to change, it's going to take Iowans calling the governor, convincing Republicans that zero for our local schools is unacceptable.
Didn't you already take your piece out to the public to urge for 2% allowable growth like a couple months ago, and why is this kind of different?
Well, I think we won the argument with lots of people in that equation, but we didn't win it with any of the people in this building. So now it's important for people to call their governor, a governor that says he's for education, and get him to back off his 2-year starvation diet for local schools.
Did the passage of the abortion bill yesterday in the Senate just kind of add to the gridlock, or do you think the House is going to be willing to compromise on this and send it to the governor?
I have no idea what the House is going to do. That's up to the House. We're about getting Iowans to weigh in. This session is not stalled because of social issues or because of 2-year budget gimmicks or any of those kinds of things. This session is stalled because the governor won't commit to providing the resources for the next generation of workers in this state.
So you're saying
a lot of this is the feet of the governor as opposed to the House Republicans in that same call.
Obviously, the governor and the Republicans in the House are of the same party, and if they get on the same page, they can make things happen. 0% allowable growth when we've got $1 billion in the bank, and this would cost, 2% allowable growth would cost the state about $65 million. That's a pretty modest chunk of that $1 billion that we're going to have in the bank on July 1st. To say it's unaffordable is simply not looking at the facts.
Did you meet with the governor yesterday, and will you meet with him at all this week?
I will. I've met with the governor's staff people, so I've not met directly with the governor, but we've today, this morning.
Maybe you have other meetings planned today?
We may have another meeting this afternoon.
Can you describe the tone of that meeting if there's no progress made?
The tone is they don't want to invest in education. They don't want to invest in job creation. That's the tone of those meetings. That's why we're asking Iowans to call Governor Branstad and tell him to get off starvation budgets for education and job creation in this state.
Mike, why aren't you meeting directly with the governor instead of messing around with the staff? Why don't you just sit person to person? And he said that he would.
We value staff. We don't consider it messing around with them.
But why don't you meet one-on-one with them?
We're perfectly willing to meet one-on-one with them. We've met one-on-one with them multiple times this session.
What is it? There have been split legislatures in the past in situations when there's been a person of another party in the governor's office. What is different about this year that is making this so difficult?
In those years, there were people that were committed to education and job creation in this state. That's why we're asking Iowans to weigh in and try and make a difference with the people that are here now, because that commitment doesn't seem to be there.
Is this as simple as you'll go for a 2-year budget if they give you 2%? So
I'm not going to bargain through the press.
well, are you sort of doing that, though?
I'm not going to bargain through the press. We think 2% allowable growth is affordable. We think our schools need it, and we're going to fight and continue to fight. We need Iowans' help to make that difference. Call Governor Branstad, 281-5211.
Just to
Okay, in bold, hold on,
clarify.
a minute. In bold, though, in your sheet here, you said 2-year budgets are not stopping adjournment, right? Delaying adjournment, whatever. So you're saying 2-year budgets are okay?
No, you're attempting to get me into negotiations I'm not engaging in. I'm not, that's not what's stopping this session. We're fighting for education and job creation in this state. That's what's holding up the session.
But does that, I mean, if somebody look at that says, oh, they're okay with 2-year budgets.
Not many rational people would jump to that conclusion, in my view. In my view. If you want to stretch it to that point, let me just say to you, you're wrong.
Okay.
Mike, just clarifying your initial remarks, you referred to 4% allowable growth.
No, I said 2. Did I say 4? Yeah, I apologize. I meant 2. I meant 2. 4 is what it should be. 2 is what we actually think is affordable
Would you be
and
okay
responsible.
with 4% over 2 years?
Like I said, we're not going to negotiate here. It's time for Iowans to make the difference with the players at the Capitol. The people we're talking to right now are not listening. So we need Iowans to convince them to listen.
So the governor says that his call for fiscal responsibility was a mandate from the public, from the voters, and you're saying your call for education funding comes from the public. So are we talking about a different public here, or what's the contradiction here?
State the question again.
The governor's calling for fiscal responsibility. He says
Fiscal responsibility means you don't sacrifice the opportunity for the next generation of kids in our state. That's not being fiscally responsible. That's being stupid.
What makes you think, though, if people do call the governor, that those Democrats.
all I'm trying to do is change the equation inside this building. People here aren't listening. When I go back to my local community, people kind of go, well, you ought to be able to afford to do something for schools. And what we get when we're here is 2 years of starvation budgets for schools, 0% allowable growth, unprecedented in the entire history of the school aid formula. It has never been set at 2%, at 0% before, never. Never in the history, back to 1974. Through good times and bad, it has never been set at 0. And this at a time when we actually have more cash in the bank than ever in the history of the state, $1 billion.
Mike, you're probably aware, they announced today that they're going to do a statewide tour, so if they just say, call Gronstal's office, isn't this all just going to cancel itself out?
I would say, so far, and I listen to almost every single message I get, and as you can imagine, I get quite a few, not one of them has called and left the message, 0% allowable growth is just fine. Not one Iowan has called me, now they probably will that I've said that, but not in the 130th day of the session, not one Iowan has called me and said 0% allowable growth is fine.
Mike, let me say something about it. You know, the mandate of the voters keeps getting brought up, and you raised that mandate of the voters. One thing I believe the mandate of the voters was not to cut community colleges and to cut preschool and to raise per credit hour costs at community college from $6 to $9 a credit hour for next year. I don't believe that was a mandate of the voters. And I don't believe the telephone calls are going to reflect that.